Have you? Yeah.
We understood she was doing them. Oh, it doesn't matter, yeah.
Cryptocurrency. Right now, there's no real way to report. So, for example,
Thank you.
if you had
That was
any
smart.
gains in 2020,
When you feel as much as I do, he's always got back.
they did not. I mean, you should.
Mr. President, I believe
Whole
we're ready
family.
when you are. Sorry.
Capital gains.
Called me up and said, go do this. They were neighbors. Oh.
Now,
Okay, 6:30, we have a quorum. Meeting to order, please rise. We pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, first topic for discussion. Request to be heard, Redevelopment Commission, Ben Comer.
Good evening.
Good evening, Ben.
Thank you for having me. I'm Ben Comer. I chair your redevelopment commission. Four of the five of us are here tonight. Two in the audience with me, and Mr. Van Leer also sits on the commission. We're here to request a loan town until the redevelopment commission accumulates enough money in our account to pay it back. We have our eye on acquiring a piece of property within a primary project area for us right in town. Happy to go into those details if you'd like me to on where and all of that sort of thing. But my ask is that we have created some TIF districts in the town, and that will start generating revenue into the RDC coffers this year. But it won't happen soon enough for us to acquire a piece of property that's important to us. Conceptually, Jenny and I were talking about potential options, and I think we have several, one of which is to potentially tap into the host fund as taking a loan that we will pay back as TIF money comes into our account. I'm anticipating 2 to 3 years tops for repayment terms. And that's the gist of it.
Any questions for Ben?
So can you point to it on the map over there?
Middle? Yep. Let me get my bearings. Where are we? Right. Keep going. Yep. Is the old Pop Logan's garage, as it's referred to.
So it's not a house.
Just a second.
Lot that the RDC already owns, and this is a 4-unit apartment building that we have our eye on.
Okay, that's just across from Speedway?
It is. This is Speedway gas station. This is the breadbasket. Library's down here.
Okay.
And so the project area that we have in mind is this entire block right here. And, you know, the redevelopment commission, by definition, I mean, we have our eye on a lot of different things, but redeveloping what we consider blighted areas in the town is one of our primary functions. The commission's discussed it, and this is the top target area that we've looked at to say, hey, this is right in town. This is a very noticeable corridor. It's right on 36, and it doesn't look very good right now. And so we are trying to acquire these properties as we can. We were able to get a hold of this one. We may have an opportunity to discuss buying this one, and if so, that's what we'd need the money for. Eventually, we will get around to our next order of business will be getting around to contacting this property owner and just starting a dialogue, starting a discussion about how we can work together.
So answer this.
this block.
So when you get, you'll have those two properties.
Right.
And will you build a building, or will you ask for a builder to come, and how does
Yeah.
that work?
Well, under the statute and the code, I think we have a lot of different options. I don't see us building a building. I
No,
don't see
I
us
understand that,
tackling
but-
that, but partnering with perhaps a public-private partnership. You know, the town of Plainfield, downtown Plainfield, where they bought an entire city block and put up a really nice new building right in their downtown.
Yeah.
That was a public-private partnership done through a commission like ours, and that's kind of the role model of how something like this could work. And if we come to, we come to the table with the real estate assets as participation in this project, that's kind of what we see as us being able to bring to the table.
Okay. Do we get any other benefit besides taxes from that?
Well, we get a redeveloped block within our,
Sure.
primary town. Yeah.
Okay.
And depending on what goes in there, food and beverage tax, I mean, the possibilities are endless.
Okay.
Thank you, Jenny. That's exactly right. So,
Wonderful.
Yep.
Anybody
You've
else?
spoke to the current landowner there?
Which one? On the
one
corner?
On the corner, yeah.
I've spoken to their broker.
Okay.
Yes.
If you got this, like, just say you got it, there's people renting in there right now?
One of the four is occupied. Yeah.
Would you continue on renting it until it,
So, I think so. I mean, there's no reason to tear it down and not have any revenue from it, is my thought. In fact, rent more of them and, start to
Yeah.
recoup the investment right away. And it's a buy and hold and try to, generate momentum for redevelopment that will eventually occur here. There's no doubt in my mind it will come, but it may come later, sooner, we don't know. So, yeah. And we may not get this property. There's a lot of due diligence to be done. We're just scratching the surface right now, and the first thing that comes to mind is, well, if we are going to buy it, how are we going to pay for it? And so
Sure.
trying to cross that hurdle first before we really get down into negotiations to know we have funding available to do this, and then we'll take a look at the next step towards making it happen.
So are you,
And I'm sorry, Chris, go ahead.
are you just gonna make an offer, and what would that offer be for that property?
What I'm asking for from the council is up to $300,000 for a loan. That answers your question. Yes, so hopefully that's a negotiable point, but I don't know that it will be, and I don't know that we're gonna be okay with that amount, but we might be. And so I'm asking for some latitude and discretion to go into those negotiations and try to figure out some of those answers.
are you already talking to the people that own it?
Their broker.
Yeah, okay.
And they,
And-
by the way, they called us, so I wasn't out soliciting this, but it's been on my radar for a while. Yeah, that, especially the garage, right? I mean, it's a situation we need to look at.
I will add that Jim Phillips and Greg Turnay from the host Board of Finance are here. Jim and I had a conference call yesterday, Monday, I don't know, it's been a long week, with Huntington Bank about the possibility of doing a 60-month term borrow against the host future fund at a 2% rate. Rates are really good right now. I met with North Salem State Bank on Monday as well, and they're looking at a rate of 2% to do a 5-year loan. So we do have some options. Of course, we'll have to send out for any lender to be able to bid on it, like we do with the bonds. It's very similar to a bond. It'll just truly be a mortgage with the collateral being the property in the house, to give you guys an idea of what we're looking for.
So that being said, it would be, other than the house as collateral, are you saying that the host would also be collateral? Or
Correct.
So not actually removing anything from the host, just,
Correct, correct.
Good deal. Sounds like a
And
good
do you,
deal.
Greg, Jim, do you have anything to add to that?
Jim, could you come up to the microphone, Jim? Thank you, sir.
Huntington's approach to it was rather than a mortgage, going through the expense of having a mortgage and having to pay principal and interest, was to create a line of credit for $300,000 with the host fund being the collateral per se. But only interest payments would have to be made during the period that it's in use. And their rate is 2.11, which the town would only have to pay the interest every month. If you want to pay principal, that's fine, but if it's a short-term 2 or 3 year deal, just pay the interest and save the cash flow.
Jim, was that a variable rate or was that a fixed rate?
It's variable.
Variable? Thank
Yeah.
you.
And I'll add that the TIF revenue that we receive is, of course, from property taxes. So we receive that revenue in June and in December. So with our first revenue anticipation, it's going to be in June. So, but it starts this year and it'll trickle in. So like Ben said, it's going to take us a couple years, and they have other projects allocated for that revenue coming in. So of course, they don't want it all to be going to this if this is able to work out. So that's where he's looking at we could do a 5-year term, and then of course with an early payoff with no penalty, and especially if we do the line of credit.
I would add that, I mean, the interest, whatever interest would be accruing, I think the RDC can handle that payment. It wouldn't have to come out of the town. It could come out of the allotment, your budget, what you give us every year, and/or the TIF. We could easily handle that.
And/or the rent?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, no more questions? Well, thank you,
I've
Mr.
got one real
Oh,
quick. Is the Dairy Queen owned by individuals or a corporation?
It's a limited liability company, I believe.
Okay.
If my memory serves me correctly.
That's correct. There's 2 individuals that live in Zionsville that have an LLC.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Comer.
Thank you.
Okay, next, B, side-by-side vehicles. So,
Yes? Okay, there we go. So, Mark, I think you sent around some, like, initial notes in the statutes, right? On the ATVs, off-road vehicles. So, under Indiana statute, you are permitted to allow those on the streets, but you can't duplicate the state statute, but you have to comply with the state statute. So there's just certain things that the state has already said, like you can't drink and drive, you have to have these kind of headlights, you know, if you're operating after dark, you have to do this. So you can't put those in the ordinances because they already apply to the operation of off-road vehicles. So basically where we would be at is you would be passing an ordinance basically saying you want to allow off-road vehicles, and then any kind of regulations that you guys as the council wanted to do, I could just double check and make sure that it's not like conflicting with state statute, or there's a few things that it just says you can't do, like you can't impose some kind of certain weight limit and things like that. So it'd be really up to you guys thinking about, do you want to allow these, and if so, you know, making sure that everyone understands that the state statutes will still be in place, and thinking of anything additional that you guys might want to put in there.
So with the current golf cart ordinance, those vehicles are not allowed on like state highway, 36, 39, have to cross at a parallel cross. I assume it's the same thing for off-road
I
vehicles?
think that's true. Let me look really quick. I think I saw that there.
that was my question as well. The way we have the golf carts today is we can cross at the streetlights across 36, but that's it. And this county ordinance, does that allow us to drive on 36?
And we wouldn't be following the county's ordinance,
Yeah.
we'd actually be following Indiana State Code. I just included the county's resolution so you'd have an idea of what they had done. But we would have to actually follow Indiana state law.
As I'll have to check on the state highway aspect. I think I've seen it before, but it's not pulling up in any of the statutes I've pulled up.
Some of the things I feel is that the golf carts pretty much are not racing cars, and they run at a nice speed. Everybody likes them. They run around town. And then some of these side-by-sides like Gators, and there's some other names like,
Mules, Kubota has an RTV, things like that.
and these also aren't like racing vehicles like a Razor is.
Right.
So Razors are included in this ordinance, that they could drive Razors around?
Well, I'm not sure what you mean by razor,
It's a-
to be honest.
It's an off-road vehicle that goes really fast. And you get in one and you don't drive it slow. You're always goosing it, you know. It's like it was a big motorcycle.
There's a definition, so state law defines it, so you cannot redefine what an off-road vehicle is. What you could do is allow certain types, but you couldn't discriminate into certain brands. I wouldn't say like you can only drive a Honda of this and not, but if you said, if whatever this Razor is, there's a list of like 10 plus things down in here, you could say that you don't allow that. So you don't have to, if you open it up, you don't then have to allow every type of off-road vehicle.
Right. I mean, my personal view is the golf buggies, of course, and some of these Gators, but the Razors, I think are a little bit too dangerous and really not a family-orientated thing, especially what happened last week with the gentleman.
Yeah, I think, like I said, you can't really go in there and define and say, we're going to call an off-road vehicle this, but you could say this certain type of thing is not allowed, I mean, for safety reasons.
Yeah.
So you can regulate it at that level. And speed, the state law says reasonable, so that means you can put a speed limit, but it has to be reasonable. So you can't put like 80 or 5 or something crazy. It has to be reasonable, but since they haven't set one, then you can.
And those vehicles, I mean, they still have to abide by state and local ordinance on posted speed limits.
See, that's a little bit different because that whole section of the law defines vehicle differently.
But I guess what I'm saying is that if we have a posted speed limit of 30, they can't go 60 and
Yes.
still comply
Yeah.
with, they have to comply with the stated speed limit. They can go slower if they choose. They just can't, I mean, if they exceed that, then they're going to be facing, penalties as any other driver would that would exceed that speed limit.
I can look into this a little more. There's really nothing out there about it, but I would probably suggest doing a different speed limit if you allowed these, or the same speed limit, but putting it out there just as something separate, because speed limits do, by law, apply to a vehicle, which is defined differently. So you're right that somebody should not be driving over the posted speed limit, but I think to cover your bases, you should have a speed limit for the off-road vehicles.
So maybe we have a vote coming up on this in the next meeting. Maybe we could do a little bit more work on this.
The reason I asked Caitlin to come tonight is that you would be able to ask her the questions that you've asked her, pose the questions on the types of vehicles, what your concerns were, and then once we come to an agreement, I'll ask Caitlin to put together an ordinance, and if that ordinance doesn't meet your satisfaction, we can keep tweaking it, but we have to start somewhere, and that's why we started here tonight.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. A lot of these ordinances that you see as examples just reiterate state code, and you're actually not supposed to do that. So this would probably be a lot shorter and simpler, but then you can fill in any other regulations that are okay. So I think that's a good idea. So I'll just pass something around and get your thoughts and feedback.
Excellent, thank you.
Anybody else? All right, thank you very much. Vacation time for employees.
So you asked me to do some searching on how other communities do this, and nobody, except for I think one agency, went past 20 years. And what they did is they added one additional vacation day for every year past 20 years. Some agencies combined everything to paid time off or PTO time. They broke it down to like 24 vacation, 2 sick. But to say that almost everybody literally maxed out at 20 years, except for one agency. And I know Jenny's got some ideas as far as starting the accrual a little earlier in the person's career, because we have, as you can see by the policy, the first year you get 5 days, second year you get 10, and then you're not moving up to 15 until you're at that 9th year. And,
Okay.
if you're looking to incentivize employees, this might be a way to do it. So I'll let her speak.
I was wanting to give them a little bit more incentive. They get people that long in working for us. They can know a lot of things and make life a little easier for them.
Right. Jenny?
So, Tom, we have 5 employees that have worked here 20-plus years. In 2020, with the 86 town employees that we have that receive full-time benefits, and now it was a unique year because of COVID, but we had 7 employees that lost time because they couldn't use all of their PTO time. We are incredibly generous when I look at other cities and towns in the corporate world with the amount of time that we allow employees to have off. And then if you factor in the comp time that employees have built up in their bank, it's pretty incredible. So my recommendation as we look at this is exactly what Mark said. I would like to see something done at the 5-year mark. We have a lot of employees that are between that one, I don't have the exact number for you, but I would say probably 30 employees that are between that 1 and 9-year mark. I would like to see at 5 years, you get the 15 days. And then bump all of that up. And then maybe at 10 years, you get the 20 days. And then at 15 years, I know that doesn't help these people who've been here, but these people, they're very good people. They manage their time very well. And they've been turning their time in December. I mean, we had Chief Roberts, what'd you turn in, 2 weeks? Unpaid. Mark turned in 2 weeks. Jerry, a lot of the superintendents turn time in. And when you look at Matt, how much time did you turn in, Matt? 7 days? So we're already, they can't use the time they have. And like I want to say, it was a unique year with COVID, but every year, Mark, all of the guys turn in time because they can't use.
What do you mean by turn in time? Do they get paid for that time?
No, and that's something else I want to look at. They lose it.
Yeah, okay.
So as part of the 2022 budget process, I would like to see a policy that if you can't use all your time, you get paid out for it.
Well, I think that would be logical.
But we have to set a limit, like you can either carry over 5 days or you can get paid, or we're going to get ourselves in a different situation with that. But I think it's great that you brought it up. I think that we do need to address it, but the employees that are suggesting that they get more time are the earn it and burn it employees, as I like to call them. They get their sick time, they take a sick day. They get their vacation day, they take it. So,
Okay, yeah.
but when you look at the big picture of the amount of employees that the town has, and you look at the management team, they all turn time in. So I would just suggest that we look at the
Robbie
different
doesn't care. He
terms.
just lives at the fire department. He don't care. That's all right. We just leave him there till he passes away. But there are other people. If we can't do I was thinking of something for every year after 20, you'd get a day. Can't do that for the next so many years because there's some people have been here 40 years, I think. Anyways,
They retired.
maybe we add another 10 years to it. Okay, so we,
Because Ray was one of those, and Jimmy Russell was one of those, and Gary Aiken was one of those, and Laura Parker, and they've all retired.
that's good. Then we don't have to pay anything. Gives you incentive to go for 40 years. Anyway, so we need to work on it a little bit more. I like what you've done there. Any comments from the council?
I would just say that I definitely think we should review that during that budget process for 2022.
Anybody else? Okay, so that ends the discussion for our work study today. Anybody like to make a motion to,
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
have a motion and a second? Everybody agree?
Aye.
Work study's closed. The main meeting will start